I have been thinking about this audio for a couple of weeks now, reflecting, editing, trying to find clarity in my head before I put it on the mic. But I have to say, I'm still kind of trying to figure it out. So I'm gonna jump in with no safety net and just see if my doubts are of any use. A couple of weeks ago, I made a mistake, one that I very rarely make because I know it's a mistake. I woke up super early. I woke up at 4 a.m. and it was one of those days that I turned around a couple of times, but I couldn't go back to sleep. I sat, I meditated for an hour, but that was still 5 o'clock. I had kind of like a strong wave of creative inspiration, so I wrote, but still was another hour or 45 minutes or so, until the sun rise and I could go for my walk with Moe that I go every morning. So one shouldn't at that time of the day, but I did open my Instagram and scroll a little bit through it. And one of the things I found was the post of a podcaster that I have been following for 2 or 3 years. He's a brilliant man. He's a brilliant man. A mathematician, a musician, a spiritual man, very intelligent in the way he explains really difficult spiritual concepts. And all in all, a very rounded fella. And I really appreciate his content very much. But like with many of these new podcast stars, I have seen in him an evolution to more and more make things about him rather than about the things. And even when he brings guests, lately a great part of the conversation is him speaking, and a great part of the conversation is about him, despite having maybe someone very interesting on the other side. So, and it's not him alone. I feel this is a tendency in general. You see people that come almost up as an alternative to a way of doing things that is very egocentric. But then when success appears and when things start to go well and they become famous, not all of them, but some of them, you can see that the spotlight begins to change their behavior, yeah? So, still admiring him, I had already felt this vibration from him. The post was about authenticity. A long post where he claimed to be very authentic in different ways. It was actually a question about authenticity. What do you think authenticity is? But in the explanation of it, he basically thought that being authentic, what he claims to be, was not giving a shit about what other people think. And this was in an Instagram post, and attached to the text, it was a series of pictures that were 8 photographer portraits of him in a row. And maybe because I was raw at the early time of the day, or maybe because I actually feel authenticity is a value that is very important nowadays, especially with the social networks, the online life, AI appearing. This is a sensation that you don't know what is true anymore, that you don't know what is real anymore. So, without really maybe knowing exactly what the word means, I do feel like authenticity is a currency that is very important at the moment. So I got triggered and I made a comment. And it was polite. I said, listen, I admire you, I like your content, but I think, associating authenticity with a bunch of pictures of you in a row is misleading. I think it's more of I don't know exactly how I put it. I think I called it, it's misleading and it can lead people and you to an ego trip. Yeah, as I clicked the button, I knew like why. Even if even if that represented what I was thinking in my head, what is to be gained by going online and antagonizing with someone on his post? Very silly of me. So he attacked me, and after he attacked me, another 20 or 30 people commented on my post, and then there was also some people that agreed, yeah. But it was something that I don't know. I don't like to. There's enough conflict and enough aggression in the world and enough division, and I felt, yeah, it was an error. It was an unskillful action, even if it represented what I was thinking. Yeah. But nonetheless, it brought me to a reflection. The event itself brought me to a reflection. So first, this sentence of I don't give a shit what other people think of me. Well, I can remember times in my past as a young man where I might have said that. But not only is not true, we are mammals, we are tribal beings, we have a social dimension in which not only we care what other people think about us, but I think it's healthy. I think it's healthy that somehow the feelings that we create in others, while they do not entirely color our behavior, that somehow we take it in consideration. And to pretend that it's not, I find it to be quite a big blind spot. My words, my actions, the clothing I use, the social signals that I express myself through. Of course, I care what people think about me. Maybe I don't let it color entirely my behavior, but for instance, in this post, first of all, it's in social media. Social media is about you expressing things to others and getting feedback to a certain degree, especially when you're placing pictures and a question. But also, if someone disagrees with you, and like with me, with other people, he immediately responds, kind of attacking. Well, if you don't give a shit, you don't give a shit. There's no point. It's not like the intention was like, oh no, I'm going to teach this young man. I'm not young. I'm going to teach this man that he's making an error of judgment. No, like he was triggered as well by having people disagreeing on his post. And then the association with authenticity, with a way of showing yourself that is very loud and very externalized. I don't know, something in that brought me to the feeling that what apparently sounds in colloquial conversation like a very easy thing to say, what is to be authentic, that it had more to it than it meets the eye. So anyway, I kind of read amused the comments through the day, and at the end of the day, I wrote my answer, just again polite. I said, first, I'm sorry. This was a mistake. It represents what I feel, but what am I doing writing it online? And then I said something like, it's not the pictures. Like if you put a bunch of pictures and you say, guys, look at me, don't you think I'm pretty? I would say that's fucking authentic, that's amazing. But that is not the vibe I got, yeah? So anyways, that's the mistake I made. But from there was a question. What the fuck is it to be authentic? What does it mean? What is, when we say someone is authentic, what does it mean? So I've been pondering around that question for a couple of weeks. And to be honest, I don't yet have it very clear. There is a certain sense of being able to be yourself, regardless of circumstance, regardless of who is in front of you. But that seems to require a clarity of intention. So there is a connection between what you are feeling inside and what you are portraying outside. And no matter how externally free you might look, or you might express yourself, and me, yeah, I wear earrings, I have my hair long, I sometimes curse or swear, it can be inappropriate or irreverent. But if that is intended to create a reaction, or to be liked, or to make a splash, or to receive the spotlight, and somehow I want you to believe that that is not the case, then what is the authenticity? If that is the way I am, if that is the way I express myself in private with my friends, if that is the way that somehow my evolution or my karma or my cultural background has carved me, then yeah, sure, I am authentic if I am expressing myself that way, whether it is with my friend or with a policeman or with the mayor of Lagos, yeah? Then there would be a certain degree of authenticity in me being me in different circumstances and with different people. But if in my behavior there is a latent desire of getting an outcome from you, and I pretend that is not there, see, my behavior might look like I'm the most relaxed dude, like I don't give a fuck. But I'm lying. I'm lying to myself first, and later on to everybody. And with lying, I don't mean the narration of a past event with accuracy, but I mean the embodiment of my true intention, for which my true intention needs to be examined to a certain degree. I might behave in a certain way because I want some gain, or I might behave in a certain way because I want to protect myself from shame or from embarrassment or from my own insecurity. And that brings me, I think, to a second quality. So beyond the clarity in the intention, I think is the ability as well, especially in a world now that everything is so polished and we try to look always so pretty, prettier than we are, to somehow allow the world to see your impurities, allow the world to see your, when you don't know, or when you are unpolished and imperfect, and be able to come to a moment of interaction with your insecurity exposed, with your fears not hidden. Because I think this, the hiding of our own uncertainty, creates the illusion that no one has uncertainty. And then everybody gets used to pretend that we know what the fuck is going on, that we are certain. And that is not true. And that is deeply inauthentic, because the very basic truth of being a human being is that we don't know. We don't know. We are somehow half blind walking in this world. We don't know where we come from, where we are going. We don't know exactly what life is. We don't understand quantum physics. We are constantly trying to figure out what is going on. So there is an existential uncertainty that whenever we try to mask it and pretend that we have arrived to conclusions, and those conclusions are very firm and very solid, that's very dishonest, because no one fucking knows. And that's the truth, and maybe it's a painful truth, but it's a universal truth. So I would say, at least as a first round of reflection, that authenticity would be born out of one, really fully understanding, to the degree that is possible, what your intentions are when you're expressing yourself, when you're acting, especially in relationship to people. Think about yourself in an empty room or in a desert island. How much do you care about how you look? How much do you care about your nails being a little dirty? How much do you care that your hair is messy or that your clothes are not matching? Yeah. And then take yourself out of that context and bring yourself into simply just a room, even of friends. Yeah. And you begin to realize, within social environment and interaction, there is a different expression of me. And in that expression, the intention, the way you want to be perceived, is certainly part, maybe not fully, but certainly part of our behavior. So to acknowledge that it's an intrinsic part of being authentic, I feel. And then secondly, the ability to be transparent with your fragility and with your lack of certainty. And then this of not giving a shit what other people think of you. That I have said in the past that is not true. How do I see that now? I think it's more like treating everybody with respect, treating everybody with I was going to say love, but maybe that's not the case, but I mean, ideally, yeah. But treating everybody, the sun shines on everyone the same way. So who am I to think that this person deserves more sincerity than the other person, even if my interaction with A is more complex than my interaction with B? If I am authentic, I am me. Let's say you say is a diamond, is authentic or is fake. Well, if the diamond is a diamond in all circumstances. So not so much the not giving a shit, but ability to offer yourself to every person. You will adapt the language, you will adapt maybe the delivery, because it's different to talk to a 3-year-old than to talk to a 70-year-old, the President of the United States, or a person who is dying, or a person from a completely different culture, and that there is very little cultural references that you share, yeah? So there will be an adaptation, but that your level of respect to the human, maybe not reverence, but acknowledgement of their deserving of your truth. It reminds me now a story, a Zen story, where there is a master of a monastery that is one day receiving, I don't know, in the story, he's receiving the king. And as the king is approaching, he realizes that his palms are sweating. And then the day after, he congregates his students and he tells them that he's not ready to be the teacher because he is not yet able to see everybody in sameness, to see the homeless and the king within the same category. So he renounces and he becomes the student of another teacher. And the story is that he practices and then 8 years later he comes back and he is enlightened. Yeah, I think that, I don't know if I'm making my point or if I'm even making a point to myself. At the bottom of it, I feel that the expression, when I have used it, I don't give a shit what people think about me. It's hiding aggression. It's hiding a latent expectation of confrontation. It's hiding a defiant challenge to an invisible enemy. So, I don't know. Being a bit older, I feel that that vibration is softer. So I do care what people think, but I wanna give everybody the opportunity of receiving the same sincerity from me, if that makes any sense. And then maybe it's overlapping some of what I have said, but then also it's a sense of, I don't know what the right word is. What is coming to mind is humility, but I think it's not making yourself neither bigger nor smaller than you are, neither enlarging a sense of ego that makes you look in the eyes of others as more than you are, nor reverse ego, which is falling into the victim category or into the victim behavior, where you place on others an image of you that is on purpose smaller than you are for whatever satisfaction that might give us, yeah? Because it satisfies maybe a narrative, maybe we have gotten used to see ourselves in that way. The mother of a good friend of mine has a saying, I am me, nothing more and nothing less. There's some truth in that, in relationship to the being authentic. And now, because we project so far, before you had a small group of friends and maybe your work colleagues and your family, I don't know, altogether you had 2 dozens of people in your life, maybe 100 tops. But now we are projecting our image across, poof, anyone can see you. So it's like we're all on television in one way or another, yeah? So it's very tempting, even without realizing, to portray yourself as more or less, to give out a narrative of, please look how wonderful my life is, how wonderful I am, or the opposite, look at all my problems and feel pity for me. In the case of this story that I was telling you before, there was a detail there. There was like 20 comments accusing me of being judgmental and how if you're in the path, you wouldn't be judging. Who are you to say this? Yeah, that was kind of like the tone that in my comment I was being judgmental. And I was reflecting. First, I wrote, first of all, I never said that I'm perfect. This is not me saying, hey, this guy is an idiot and I'm perfect. I was, like I said before, it was an error. If I would have had a coffee with him, I would have had this conversation in a lighter tone. But when you put something in writing, it always sounds more judgy than you might feel inside, even if in this case I was triggered, yeah? But of first it was, I never said that I don't judge. Of course I judge. We all judge. Every day, constantly, we are living according to different degree of judgment. Now, we can work in setting ourselves free from the judgments that we are constantly experiencing, and we can detach ourselves from the tendency to judge to a certain degree. And hopefully, even if we dislike a behavior, we can split the behavior from the person and not treat the person poorly just because the behavior of that person, I don't like it. That's a process. That's a lifelong process. So that was a part of the day that kind of amused me when I was reading the comments of people disagreeing with me, judging me for being judgmental. You see, we have these enormous blind spots when, just because you do yoga and you meditate and you have good intentions, that doesn't mean that you don't judge. Of course, we judge. Hopefully we transcend, we have good days and bad days. But I think acknowledging the fact that you are filled with flaws and that you're just human, wonderful sometimes and a piece of shit other times. And yeah, through an investment in a life of presence, in a life of appreciation, in a life that is committed to awaken from your heart, to develop heart energy and compassion, hopefully, yeah, our balance sheet will have more hearts than claws. But there are claws. We have tons of imperfections, and to turn the gaze away from them does not make them disappear, yeah? So what does it mean to be authentic? I don't know. I don't know. To be you, to be accessible, to own your shit, to be able to say, I'm sorry, to be able to not take your judgments very serious, and, maybe think in your head, this fucking idiot, and then, meet the fucking idiot and do your best and treat him with respect and with love, and always giving each other second chances and third chances and fourth chances and fifth chances, and do it with a certain naturality in the meanness, in me being me. That is, like a tree is a tree. This is no more, it's no less, it's no different. You know, the only thing that we can do well is to be you. Everything else, you're gonna do it wrong. Because by trying to be who you are not, well, that's the only thing you cannot do. So there's a certain karma, there is a certain path, and within that, we try to achieve a certain degree of excellence in action. We try to achieve a certain presence in being that arises out of gratitude to life and to existing. But simple, I think. I mean, if your essence is exuberant, then for you simple is to be exuberant. But if exuberance is a cop-out or an armor or an invisibility cloak to hide yourself, then you're not exuberant. Then exuberance is not simple. Exuberance is an act. Yeah. Yeah, like when you go to a big city and they have all these fake brand markets in the streets, and it's like Dolce Gabbana or Nike, and they're knockouts, they're fakes. They're non-authentic because it's not what it is. It's just an imitation. So somehow I suppose being authentic is stop imitating and put that energy in innovating because every moment is new. And then by being so new, I guess you don't have any other chance than being you, because you really don't have any point of reference of how else to be in that moment except being what you are and who you are. Anyway, this was really the best I can do. I have had 300 million things around this. I have been tempted to write it down, to organize it in a different way. But the subject being the subject it is, I actually thought that it was calling me to do a raw recording where even my own confusion is exposed. But this said, yeah, whatever it is, this mythical authenticity, I think is important. I think it's important that we relate with each other as we are, as we come. And not floppy and disengaged, oh, fuck it, this is the way I am, so I'm going to just be a piece of shit all day. Because that's also not who we are. There is an inherent appreciation for beauty in all of us. And that includes our own behavior, our own words, and our own way of carrying ourselves through life. So me being me does not negate my desire to see all the beauty that is in me and to see it mirrored in all the beauty that is in you. And then in the middle we meet, yeah, with as much authenticity as we can. Not intended to convince you of anything or to impart any wisdom, more to invite you to reflect, to ponder. Yeah. I wish I could have done this better. When I decided that I was going to do this audio, I really thought that I would have more conclusions at the end of certainly 2 weeks than the ones I have now. Yeah, I suppose this is the authentic me in this situation. A little confused. Anyways, I hope in one way or another is useful, and like the title of this section is, it inspires you in some way to ask similar questions and find maybe different answers. Now, a practice for authenticity. That's gonna be interesting. Let's see what I come up with. Big hug, my friends. I wish you well. Much love.